and some guys come out and ask him if he knows me, right? And so anyway, so he starts talking to these guys, blah 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 blah, and I guess so after Shabbos they met up somehow, whatever, and so he calls me on the phone with these guys, right?
Mm.
Now the thing is, one of the guys, one of the guys that he called me with was one guy. His parents were teachers at the ball center, and then the other guy was this guy Sasha, right? And his dad. It's a crazy story. So the first time I ever came to Israel was with the Kabbalah Center in 2003, right? And so first time out of the country, the whole thing was coming with the Kabbalah Center to go to Rosh Hashanah here in Israel,
Mm.
and so during the days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, they had these like trips, right? So we went to all the different holy sites, the whole thing, right? So we go up to the north, right, the north of Israel, where the Arizal, right, the Rabbi Isaac Luria, his whole thing, a bunch of people up north, tons of the a ton of people up north. It's a huge place, but they have the Arizal Old Shul, right, and then they also have the Arizal's mikveh, right. You've heard of this famous mikveh, right?
Mm.
So, anyways, so we're there, we're walking the spot, whatever, and so his dad says to me, he's like, "Come on, come on, come on." I'm like, "Wait, where are you going?" So, "Come on, come on, come on." And so they took me. Where did they take me? They took me to the Arizal's mikvah, right? And that was the first mikvah I ever went to. And that kid, his father was the one who did it like 20 years ago,
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's a crazy story, right?
Yes, yes.
Anyways, but it just reminded me like how much like just social capital, I have out there, how many people are watching and they've been seeing this journey and they've talked about it and that whole thing. And I don't know, it felt good. You know what I mean? It felt
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Okay, so any ideas, thoughts from our last class? Anything?
You have anything?
You guys are good.
Yeah,
Okay,
good.
so the thing is like this. So again, we talked about it a little bit, and we're going to go into it. Um, a little bit more. I have a really cool story I found. I mean, actually, your husband's heard the story before, but I found it. We learned it actually in the HaYasher, but but it's also it's in the Midrash, whatever. But I think it's an important idea to reflect on. Um, it's like this idea of like the structure of like the system, right? The system that we live in the articulation of like roles of man, woman, this type of thing, and how kind of like the system is kind of like in a way done in a way where it like really empowers our women, but it really undermines a lot of our men, right? Like, so I have a friend of mine, a girl that like, I mean, not girl, she's married now, whatever. But years ago, we used to hang out, like dated a little bit, whatever. But she was a very successful agent in Hollywood, right? And I remember I asked her once, I was like, why isn't there more black male agents? You know what I mean? Like, why, that whole thing, right? And she said, it's an interesting, thing. And I've talked about it. And she said she thought about it. It was like, when you're in a lot of the entertainment business is like you come in as an intern, right? But you still got to like live in Hollywood. You got to live around. You got to be able to travel. You got to be able to move around, these types of things. But you're an intern, right? So a lot of the kids who get into the entertainment side on the business side are kids who have parents that financed it in a lot of ways, right? And if you didn't have that type of situation, it would be a lot harder, right? Because you're not going to make money for a little bit, you know what I mean, type of a thing, right? And so she was saying like how as an intern and an assistant, different levels she had to work, how like a lot of the bosses that she worked with were like male men, white males that were like kind of gay, right? And they were very like intense type personalities, these types of things. And she was saying like, how many times like her boss would call in the middle of the night, cussing her out, this, blah, 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 this type of stuff. And she was saying most men would not be able to deal with that. You know what I mean? Most men don't have the temperament for, I mean, black men specifically wouldn't have that like temperament to be like cussed out by some guy, right? Why is that important? It's important to say that when we look at the school system, right, and how black men are objectified and are, basically like the teachers, is seeking defense from the black male in her classroom. You know what I'm saying? And because of that, in the way that the testing system is with the what do they call it? I can't even think right now. What do they call it when you go to college? The what was it? What was the test you take?
ACT, SAT.
SAT, exactly. And so, all those are kind of like trained mechanisms, right? Like if you like, I remember they had us taking the PSAT, right, when we were like the eighth grade or something like that. You know what I'm saying? And they were preparing us, right? So what I'm saying is saying that there's a specific design that has took place in our society where the economics of the home has curved black males and very much enveloped black women, right? And that wasn't the way that my grandparents grew up, right? The way my grandparents grew up, we're not in that era anymore. However, it still doesn't change that spiritual union, right? In the way that our structure, our system is designed is that, because this is important for other women. You understand this, you're married, you know what I mean? But a lot of other women don't understand this dynamic of being able to look at the guy who doesn't make as much money as she does and to see him as a king. You know what I'm saying? Because the way our society is designed, it's like, oh, okay, well, masculinity, right? Masculinity is understood through acquisition, right? So your ability to acquire, whether it is houses, this, whatever it is, that's your manhood. Wow, he's such a man. Look, he's supporting his family, which is true, right? But there are certain situations that are designed by society to off-put that, to undermine that nucleus of a family, right? So if I can empower the woman and undermine the man, and then cut off many things, like the highest unemployment is African American males under the age of 35, right? That's not by accident. What all of a sudden black people don't want to work, you know what I'm saying? So it's nothing to do with that, right? And so the question is, how do we teach our sisters to be able to see that, like, my man is he's a king. I'm not just saying it to hype myself up. Like, he's really, persevered, and he's here, and he's a husband, he's a father, in your case, future father, all these things, right? How can she see that in him, but she sees a guy that's not as proficient as she is not as organized as she is, and for sure not as organized as her subordinates, and even more so her boss, right? And based off of the way the structure is, a lot of those bosses are also not men of color either, right? And these types of things, right? And so, like, when we were talking about building out this spirituality, and we're building out this, like, this kind of like this spiritual marriage, right? Those rules have to be taken into account by the women. The women have to say that, like, no, they're marginalized, our men specifically, and have fed us ideas where we look down on them because they're not as organized as our white boss, right? The guy who pays me every week, he's organized. Hey, but my husband has a problem paying bills. He's not organized. You know what I'm saying? So it's being able to transcend that thinking, right? Because like, one of the stories they talk about, and we're going to go into another story, it's more personalized, but one of the things they talk about, when Pharaoh put out a decree against the firstborn, right? Like, his Pharaoh scholars come to him and say, hey, we all had a dream the same night that there's going to be this future person that comes, and he's going to redeem the people, and you're going to be, like, finished, and he's going to humiliate you, the whole thing. And so he said, really? He says, yeah, and he's coming from the Israelites. And they're like, oh my God. He says, well, we got to take care of this. So what does he do? He puts out a decree, said, well, we're just going to kill all the firstborn men, and we won't have to worry about it. So that was one decree. But even before that, right, there was another decree, which was like, intensifying the work on the men, right? Because the whole issue was that when Joseph came into Egypt, he came in and he created a whole situation where his family eventually came in, and they came in at a high class. They were like a high class, right? And so they were having, everything they did was always fruitful. They were having a lot of babies. They were having the whole thing. So people took it like, oh, you know why they're so blessed and all this stuff? They look like they're so blessed because they don't have to work. We have to have regular jobs. They don't have to work. And so that was a process of putting in this slow process of slavery, right, of subjugation, because they wanted to prove that the Jews were not blessed, and they thought by work making them work, they would have less kids. But the Torah says they even became even more abundant, even more fruitful. But the Midrashim says that the women, because they knew that the men were working hard and they were subjugating them, they would go and beautify themselves, right? They would do extra things because they knew the men had not so much strength. So they would really, go out and do the things that whatever. But what can we learn from that Midrash? Is that the Midrash is saying that the Jewish women understood that their men were being subjugated to a condition, right? And that subjugation to that condition was there to put them in a place where that family would break down, and that power would break down, and that energy would break down, right? And so they knew that, right? They knew that, and so because of that, they say beautification, but it's not limited to that idea. It's about being innovative. So my point is saying there's a lot of women that make six figures, right? And looks at a guy who's making, $40,000, $50,000 or something like that. He has a job, and it's hard for her to follow his leadership. It's hard for her to look at him as a great man because the society that I live in says masculinity is understood through acquisition, right? So society's understood acquisition, and so hey, my partner's capacity to acquire is less than mine, and for sure less than the people of authority. So how can I understand his masculinity? And that's what we were talking about yesterday, about this idea of the heavens and the earth, right? Because the energy of a man and the energy of a woman are different energies, right? So that means the intrinsic value of a man and a woman are within who they are, right? Who they are. And so what we're saying is the idea of saying that a man's masculinity is based off of his connection and his living system as it relates to God. That's the power of a man, because the society could create all types of conditions and this and change laws and let this person come in and that person come in. They could do that. They control it. There's no truth in it. They could change their opinion. Oh, wait, it's a new administration. Everybody hold up to see what's going to happen next. But we were just doing it. Yeah, I know that was 4 years ago. It's different now. It's a new administration, right? So they created a new system, and they come to our sisters and they're like, oh no, man, the brother, he got locked up. Nah, 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 nah. He's not at your level. He's not high value. You only deserve a high value man. Nah, you can't build that. Oh, really? Because Rabbi Mordecai is here saying no, actually, when the man and the woman are connected and they love each other, God's presence can rest, and God's presence is the only thing you want attracting things into your life. That's all you want. That's all you want is God's presence. You just want God's presence to come and say, hey, you know what? Okay, now it's time for a child. Now it's time for a raise. Oh, now it's time for a new business opportunity. Now it's time for you resources and relationships and values to go up. Oh, now it's time to meet this person. Now it's time. You don't want to make that decision. You don't want your calculations. You want God ways. You know how many times I've been wrong in life? You know what I'm saying? You wouldn't even know. No one would even know what a broken heart is if it wasn't for that concept. There would not be one love song about a broken heart if it wasn't for the fact that we make wrong decisions, feeling that it's completely right, right? So I want God leading me. You know what I'm saying? And so that is what has allowed families, Israelite Jewish families, to survive underneath crazy situations, is knowing that through our unity together, through our connection together, that we will be able to accomplish everything, that we will do it. It doesn't matter. And the thing is that now the wife, her job, she wants to put pressure on him. She wants him to be more righteous, more holy. Not she wants him to, be more of a intellectual, whatever. No. Be more holy, praying, fasting, working yourself, repenting, learning, teaching. Obviously, a person has to make a living, but his power is his spiritual connection. Because if you're going to follow a man's leadership, it can't rest on his intellect. It has to rest on God's giving messages and guiding him, right? God is guiding him when he's living in a righteous way. That is the powerful man. That is the powerful man, not the guy who's working 120 hours and making $3 million a week. That's not it. I understand that's the movie, and I know we're not. I know you guys are there, but I'm saying I'm speaking to the future students that we're all going to have, and really addressing this issue, right? Addressing this issue of our women have been weaponized against us, and they convinced her that the organization that Aesop is good at that. I'm not putting it down. I'm not trying to go in the corner again, but I'm just saying that organization system that creates corporate America and that structure is good, but it's purposely blocked us out. It does not want me there. It does not want me sitting in the front of the boardroom. Everybody's fired. Why? Because my natural spiritual element is going to elevate the whole conversation, right? And so that's the reality. They don't want us around. They don't want us in leadership because as we're in leadership, we see what happened. Dion came out coach. The NFL can't talk about they can't they trying everything to get Dion out. They be like, hey man, we'll give you $1 billion. Come to the professional ranks. Because the college, the leadership component, once we're in that component, now they got Michael Vick. You know what I'm saying? So now when we get in leadership, when black men that come from that Israelite connection, when we get in positions of leadership, it makes it very difficult for other people. It makes it very difficult. We innovate, right? We've proven that throughout history, right? And so we haven't even seen a white preacher since Martin Luther King. We don't know of one. You know what I'm saying? So it's just saying that when we're in position of power, so there is a systematic approach to keeping us out. And it's more now than it was even 50 years ago, right? Because the accessibility of wealth and laws have changed. Before, they just kept us in one neighborhood, right? So anyway, so my point is just saying, so to our sisters out there, is just being like, hey, you know what? Damn, they inferiorized our brothers, man. They came to us and gave us a whole script and made us look at our brother like he's supposed to be like our boss. No, he's not. He's supposed to be a spiritual man. You know, he's supposed to be a spiritual man that's dedicated to loving me, who's dedicated to my feelings, my sensitivity. He is not concerned with other women. He's not hugging anybody. He's there. He's completely focused and dedicated on me. His life is there. His connection to God is based off of his peace with me in the house, which means he has to be aware of my needs, aware of my sensitivities, and he has to grow. He's dedicated to me. Now I am a queen. Now I'm a queen. The working man, he's not there. He got to keep himself hyped up. You know, he got to, let's go to the game. Let's go. You know what I mean? He got to stay amped up because he has to go out there. He's on the hunt. But the spiritual man is at peace, and an opportunity is going to come to him, and the right opportunities, right? So that's we're just planting those seeds, or that for future people that we talk to, because it's really a war, man. It's just like they've really emasculated our women, and they look at the guy who, you know, didn't go to the same college or was not privy to that situation as not at her level. And we're like, sister, your level is to receive spiritual light. Your level is to connect, right? That's the level. I mean, the job comes in. I mean, great. You know what I mean? People make I see my parents make tons of money. I've seen them lose money. You know what I'm saying? I've seen stuff happen from other people, and they got accounts are frozen. All types of stuff I see, right? But the bottom line is that they had a spiritual connection, right? And that spiritual connection allowed them to endure. And even then they had struggles, right? And so the idea of just building this modality is saying like, no, my spirituality, my soul, my emotional health, my life, my continuity with nature largely depends on my relationship with my husband and with my wife, right? And so it's like that system of nature, of connection, it manifests with two people working towards peace. working towards spirituality. If it's about combined income, right, then it's just like, all right, well, I don't need you no more, man. I met somebody else. They make 3 times the amount, right? And it's just like, all right, that's cool, but I mean, when you get older, that ain't gonna matter, man. You know what I'm saying? Whatever you bought with that money right now is either gonna wither away or you're gonna sell it. You know what I mean? And so it's just like life isn't about that, you know. And so anyway, so I want to bring this amazing story to emphasize emphasize the power of love. Okay, so this is in the Midrash Tanchuma. So your husband's very aware of the Midrash Rabbah, right? But there's other types of Midrashim, right? And so in different Midrashim, they communicate in different ways. Some are more Agada based, some parts of the Midrashim are more into anything. But anyways, we'll just read a couple words. We'll read English. So it says, Yitzrei Nehu Be'i Son Einon HaKadosh Baruch Hu No Ser Levi Ahunav. Okay, so it's a lot, so we gotta read it. Okay, so it's like this. He starts with this word. He guards him like the pupil of his eye. Okay, let's see what's going on. The Holy One, blessed be He, guards those tested by Him like a man guards the pupil of his eye. Right? Anything gets close to your eye, you immediately flinch. You're like, "Whoa, get away, bye!" Right? It's instant. Right? Same thing. That's how Hashem protects us. Right? That's how Hashem guards us. Right? And there's a story of a very there's a story of a very rich and popular man, and he had a daughter who was very beautiful in appearance and modest, and she married 3 times to 3 different men, and on each night, on the first night of their marriage, all of her husbands died. Right, so this girl gets married. Like, your husband knows where I'm going with this. This girl gets married, and each night, the first night of her wedding, husband dies. So the first time she gets married, she marries this guy. They wake up the next morning, the guy's dead. Same thing, boom, boom, boom. So this is like a thing, right? So it's a scary thing, right? And so she this happens. So she flips out. Because you imagine, like, you're a woman, and each time your husband, you get married, you say this is a new start, this is a new beginning, and each time it happens, boom, the guy wakes up and he's dead, right? And so she says, "No man shall no longer die due to me. I will sit here as a widow, a chained woman, until the omnipresent sees and has mercy." So she said, yeah, I met this girl recently. And, people are like, they just tell me stuff, and I listen, but she just told me, she was like, yeah, because I asked her, because I have a friend of mine that maybe I thought there was a connection. Anyway, she ends up telling me, I tried to set her up, basically. And so she goes into this whole thing about this guy that she was with 10 years ago, and all this stuff happened, blah, 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 and she's just going to be alone forever, and this, and blah, 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 this whole thing. So anyways, I was like, all right, fine. So anyways, so the point is just saying like this. So she said she sat like this for many days, in that wealthy, and he says, and she sat like for many days. So this girl, she just basically gives up, right? She's like, I'm out, I'm done, whatever. So moving forward in the story, this same wealthy guy has a very poor brother in a different province, and he had 10 sons. All right. So this is a different. So the guy whose daughter, all of her husbands died, he has a brother who's not very wealthy. He's poor, and he has a lot of kids. He has 10 kids, and he says, and on each and every day, he and his biggest son would bring bundles of wood from the forest and sell them. So their business was selling, wood. They would take wood and they'll go and sell it. And then from that, his wife and his children would support it. So that's how they bought food and able to sustain their life, buy clothes, these types of things. And he says, in one time they weren't able to sell it. And because they weren't able to sell, they didn't have money for bread. And so for a whole entire day, they weren't able to eat. And he says, and when they went back into the forest, and the father the father is walking with his son, and the father faints. Why? Because he hasn't eaten. And the son has so much, like, like mercy. He had so much rahmanis on his father. He felt so bad, right? And he starts crying, and he's like, God, he just is so much pain that he can't help his father, right? And so, what did he do? The son thought in his heart, and so what did he do? He figured out. He says, you know what? I'm going to go and visit my uncle's brother. I mean, my dad's brother, right? And so he goes to visit his dad's brother, and when he gets to the house, right, everyone's happy to see him. Like, wow, our nephew's here. Oh, wow, the wife, the daughter, whatever, and this, and they're happy, right? So they're all so the wealthy family who's going through all this difficulty, right? It's interesting, right? Both brothers are going through difficulty. One brother is rich, and his daughter is, three husbands have died, and it's a humiliating, devastating experience, right? And then you have on another side, the other brother is poor, and he barely has enough money to eat, but they're both suffering. And so he says like this, and they asked him about his father and his mother. They said, so how's everything? How's my brother? How's everything? And he stayed with them for 7 days. And at the end of the 7 days, he said to his uncle, he said to him, he said, hey, I got one request. I got to ask you for something. You know, and you can't turn me away. His uncle said to him, he says, say what you want, my son. He says, he said, no, swear to me that I'm going to request something of you, and you're under no condition are you going to tell me no. And he says, okay, fine. He says, I request of you that you give me your daughter's hand in marriage. And the dad just instantly starts screaming, no, what are you doing? No, you have no idea. No, you cannot marry her. You can't, no matter what. He says, what is it? Like, what do you want, money or something? I know you guys, you need money. I give you money. You don't got to marry her. I'll give you as much money as you want. Don't worry, I'll give you money. And he said, you can't, he said, you don't endanger yourself. There's some type of wicked spirit concept on my daughter, and it's just like, I don't know what it is, we can't understand it, no one can fix it, and everyone who touches her dies. Or anyone she marries dies. And he says to his uncle, he says, you know what? He says, you know what? You already swore to me, okay? You already swore to me. And so the rich man examined the things and agreed to him. He says, all right, fine. The uncle says, fine, I'll do it. So he came to his daughter and explained to her. He said, he goes to his daughter and says, hey, honey, I just gave you a marriage. She said, no, I'm not getting married. I can't. No, this is too much. I can't. No one, I'm not putting anyone through it. Blah, blah. Same reaction as her father, right? And she's screaming and crying out, and all the bitterness in her soul. She can't take it. She can't think of an idea of getting ready to get married, going under the chuppah, doing all the blessings, having the suda, only to go to sleep, have intimacy, and wake up the next day and he's dead. She can't do it. It's too dark. It's unbelievable suffering. And she hung her eyes from above, and she said, Master of the universe, may your hand be upon me, and let not this die due to me. And he says, what did the rich, a lot of people just be calling me, right? Anyways, all right. Okay, so she prays to God. She's like, please don't let this person die. This whole thing. She can't take it. All right, so what happens? So he engaged with her. They had a big party, and all the big famous people came. They made a chuppah, and the groom sat in it, right? And an elder chant, and the elder chance was there. There was the elder. It was an elder who showed up there, but his elder was really the prophet Eliyahu Navi, right? And he was in disguise, right? And he asked to speak to the groom privately. And he went to him and he says, and he said to him, he says, my son, I will counsel you proper advice and do not budge from my advice, right? So he's at his engagement party. He's chilling, the whole thing. He's in good space. This old guy comes up to him and says, I need to talk to you. It's important. He goes and talks to him. He says, I'm going to give you advice. You got to listen to me. He says, he says, when you sit at your wedding, a poor man will come to you dressed in torn black clothes, barefoot and tired, his hair like nails, a poor man that has none like him in the whole world. When you see him, rise from your seat and seat him next to you, and give him to eat and to drink, and to serve him with all your strength and honor. And do not neglect anything from what I have told you. So he tells him some guy's going to come. He's going to be like this old guy, this, whatever. He says, you got to go and treat this guy with so much love and respect. You got to do it. And you got to give him honor, right? Okay. And he says, and do not neglect anything that I've told you, and you shall stay in peace, and you will go upon my way. So the elder left, and the groom, he said, the elder left, and the groom came to this place, and he sat at the party, right? He's sitting at the wedding, right? So the wedding comes, he's sitting at the wedding, and he says, and then he begun to eat. And he says, then a poor man came in, and when the groom saw him, he rose to his place and did everything that the elder told him. And after the party, the poor man called the groom and said, hey, can I talk to you for a second in this room? And he says, yeah, no problem. And he came into the room, and he says to him, he says, my son, I am a messenger of the omnipresent, Hashem, the creator of the universe. And I've come here to take your soul. And he says, and he said to him, my master, so he says he comes, he's basically telling him, I'm the angel of death. We're going to see. I'm the angel of death, and I come to take your soul. The old man, the guy who's an old man, was really in disguise, the angel of death, right? And he says to him, he said to him, he said, my master, give me a year's time, give me a year's time or half a year. So he starts playing with, he says, no, don't take my soul. Give me a year. Give me time. And then he says to him, and he says, no, I cannot do that. You have to come. Your time is in. And he says to him, he says, well, give me 30 days or give me 70 days of the party. And he said to him, he says, I will not give you a day, as your time has already come. And he said to him, I plead with you, wait for me until I go and leave and take it. He said, please wait for me until I go and take leave of my wife. He said to him, about this thing, I will lift your face and indulge you, but be quickly. He said, okay, you know what? I'll let you go. I'll let you go and do this. He went into the room, right? He went into the room, and she said, and she was sitting alone. So his wife is in another room. She's in another room. He was in the main area where everyone's eating at. His wife was already in a room alone. And he goes in there, and he says to her, she's sitting alone and she's crying and praying to the Creator. So his wife, the whole time where everyone was partying out there, she was in the room by herself, crying, begging the Creator that her husband should survive. And so he comes into the room and he sees her there crying, praying. And he came to her, and he came to her, and he walked into the room, and she sees him, and she gets up, they embrace each other, and she kisses him. And she says, why did you come? What's going on? And he says to her, I come to tell you that my time to leave this world has come. And she said, the angel of death came to me, and he told me that he came to take my soul. And so now I had to come, and I just came to say goodbye. I'm adding a few words. And she says to him, she says, no, don't go anywhere. Stay here. I'm going to go and speak to the angel of death myself. And so she leaves a room, and she barges into the next room, and she says to him, she sees him standing in front of me. She says, are you the angel that has come to who seeks to take the soul of my husband? And he says, yes. She said to him, he shall not die now. It is written in the Torah in Deuteronomy, when a man takes a woman for a wife, he shall not go out with the army, nor be assigned to any purpose. And he shall be exempt for 1 year for his household. and to rejoice in his to so that his wife will rejoice that they are married, right? So there's a rule that says like when a guy's first year of marriage that you don't want to disrupt it. So if there's a war that happens, guys who just got married don't have to go to that war. They're required to stay with their wives for that first year so they could build that bond, that connection, right? And so she's saying to him, if my husband, who could normally lose his life by going out to war, right, or disrupt the foundation of the marriage by going away or being taken away from her for war, she says you cannot take. So she said the Holy One, blessed be. She says like this. She says, and when she said, and she says, and the Holy One, blessed be He, says, this is true. She said, the Holy One, blessed be He, says this is true, and His Torah is true. But if you take His soul, you will make the Torah a fraud, right? And he says, and if he says, and she says, so if you accept my words as good, he says, but if not, come with me and create a court in front of the Creator, right? So she basically tells him, she says, hey, if what I'm saying is true, leave my husband alone. And if you disagree with me, I demand that you bring a court in the heavens on this issue, right? And so what is the angel? What is the angel of death say? Immediately the Holy One, blessed be He. So the angel goes up. He goes up to the heavens, and immediately the God rebukes the angel of death, and he left, right? And so the angel comes back and tells the girl in essence and says, hey, you know what? The Creator has ruled in your favor, and your husband has been permitted to live, right? And so she says, at night, the groom and the bride lay together, but the father of the bride and her mother were crying in their room. And when midnight arrived, the man and his wife got up to prepare the grave for the son-in-law before the rising of dawn. When they got up, they heard the groom and the bride laughing and joyfully together. And they went into the room to see the things, and they saw that they were rejoiced, and they announced the things to the community and gave thanks to the Lord. And he said, this is which the Holy One, blessed be He, guards those who have faith in Him. Okay, so what's the point? Why did I bring this long story, this long invoking story? What was the point of that, right? The point of that is to say that the level of the woman the woman of Israel, is that she's fighting the angel of death away from her husband. That's where she's at. Her focus is saying that not only is this is my husband, okay, not only is this is my husband, but no, I am the spiritual warrior that's going to remove the angel of death from the house, from him, and from all things. I have that power as a woman. I have the power to talk to God and remove the angel of death from the premise of my husband's life. That's the power that I have. That's the power that the Torah has. That's the power of a descendant of Israel has, that she has that power to do that. And this is the concept of this idea of building the spiritual home, right? The idea of building the spiritual home is that the woman is ultimately the powerhouse of the house. But the powerhouse and house express is that the man does what he's supposed to do, which is serving God. But the woman is there to make sure he's there. She told him, she said, no, wait here, I got this. You're obviously not speaking correctly to him. I will speak correctly with him. I will tell him correctly exactly how it works. I got this, calm down, right? And so that's that idea. We're going to have one quick idea on the washing hands, but any ideas, any thoughts on that? Any reflections?
Um, yeah, I have a few kind of tying back from the beginning of what we were saying. So like it says that a river issued out of Eden and watered the garden, right? So the male being the giver, being your soul, the river is your soul coming out of Eden. So let's say Hakadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem is the Eden, right? So the river is issuing out. So the man being connected to Hashem is receiving all the divine abundance Takes it from Eden, he's the river, and now he waters the garden, which is the nukba, which is our women. So the man being connected to Hashem brings down the blessings, but the woman actually materializes the blessings for the man. So that's one point I was thinking about. Um, Another, when we got to last week's Parsha in Miketz,
Mm.
and I was reading a Resolve, and he was saying how in Genesis 41:4, when it's talking about the seven healthy cows and the seven not healthy ones, the order of the words is reversed. So it spells out Yud Ke Vav Ke Baruch Hashem, but it's reversed. So it's Hey Yud, Hey Vav, and
Wow.
that brings the famine. So we were saying that how systemically our system is reversed in a sense, right? It's putting a woman in a position of not necessarily needing a man, how the system is structured, that feminine to masculine energy exchange brings about imbalance. Not necessarily saying that one is wrong, not that, but it's an order that Hashem created the world in. So the woman is trying to give to the man, it's not going to work. You get what I'm saying? It's not going to
Mhm.
be out. So I was thinking about that point, and then my last point was, you know, Ish and Isha. Hashem gave Ish is Aleph, Yud, Shin. Then with Isha is Aleph, Yud, Shin, Hey. You take out Hashem's names, take out the Yud for Ish and take out the Yud and Hey for women, you have Ish, you have fire. If Hashem is not in the marriage, you're going to consume each other. It's going to be nothing but destruction. It's not going to work out. It doesn't, if you're trying to pursue material goals, you're trying to pursue, gratification, whatever. If it's Shem, it's not in there. It's no productivity within that situation. It's not possible. So, just resonate with everything that you're teaching us today is very important for the man to understand his place, and it's very important for the woman to understand her place, and that's to bring union and shalom bayis with Hashem. Just like the story we just read. He's talking to the angel of death. It ain't working. It's just not working. She comes in and boom, whole situation changes. Trajectory of everything changes. So it's not about one being higher than the other. It's a perfect balance. When it's perfectly balanced, you bring in that divine abundance to your marriage, to your house, to your community, to everything. You're a
Well,
conduit for.
well, and just on that point, the point is saying, and you can have material abundance, right? And the key thing is saying that the power is not like, because a lot of times when we think about leadership, we think about, okay, well, this guy knows more, than everyone else, or this person knows more of that, and therefore they're the leader. They have the most experience, right? Yes, in the physical sense, right? Right. You need someone who knows how to do the engineering to move the kibbutz, or the kibbutz, whatever, the train, right? But the point is, over here, we're saying something different. We're saying that it's the unity between the two that allows the sustenance to manifest, right? And the unity between the two comes from different worlds. One is the woman manifests the home, but the husband brings in the light, right? That 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 she takes and turns that potential into something, creates a home, right? So that mechanism of working together and understanding that mechanism, that's the success, right? That was the success. So in roles and in income, it's all about the marketplace, right? So sometimes it's by this, sometimes it's by that, but the overall is the unity. So how do we, the question is that removing those layers of understanding and being able to create unity. And so that's why understanding my energy and the other person's energy, and eventually personality and all these other things, but those energies at least gives us the basis to start from, right? That I'm in the frame of sharing, and I'm in the shirt, and she's in the frame of receiving, right? In order to do justice by her receiving, I have to keep myself pure. I have to keep myself focused. I have to keep myself focused on God, my family, in production, in everything within those components, right? And so that's my dilemma. I want to be a better husband. I want to be more sensitive. I want to be more caring. I want to be stronger. I want to be more elevated, right? I want to be that for my wife. I want to be that for my children. That is my work, right? So I have community, I have mentors, I have teachers, I have this, I have different people, I have all these different dynamics to create that, right? And so that is that's those are the base roles to understand the energies, and then we could get into the personality and the experiences and traumas and all these other things that make up a person, right? Strengths, weaknesses, all these things, for sure. But if we don't have the basis of the heavens and the earth, and the idea that creation itself and how we manifest as human beings, how do I have a basis to build from? Right. And that's what secular society does. It doesn't give a basis. So you're always on the track of new theories. Oh, well, this is what it is. This is what man is. This is what evolution is. This is what this. No, we don't need that. We have the same system for thousands of years. Anyways, so just we're gonna just touch on this last part, and we're back on them hands. We haven't forgot about the hands. We thought the hands was over. We learned some halakha. Nah, we got to go back in those hands. Okay, so we're in HaYasher. This is a safer that I learn with your husband every day. We're off a couple of days, but it's okay. We're in Hanukkah. It's fine. We're doing other special Hanukkah learning, but we're going to get back to it, God willing, tomorrow. All right. So it says, cut to okay. Okay, so last time, right? Or kind of the Shulchan Aruch is derived from the Torah. You know what I'm saying? If that makes sense. Okay, so he says like this: a person must first wash his face and hands in the morning to remove evil spirits that attach itself to a person when he sleeps. We talked about that, but they're getting explicit right now. So he says like this. He said, for this reason, a person must also wash his face and hands when he sleeps during the day, and even most certainly when sleeping at night. So it's any time a person goes to sleep and wakes up that energy is on it. V'hine ra'iti sherov ha'olam inam nizeharim bazeh. So he says, I have noticed that the most people are not meticulous about this matter. So he's saying people don't take this how serious it is. It's a very serious thing. When they sleep in the daytime, they do not wash at all, and even if they do, they use only a small amount of water. Even in the morning, when hand washing is certainly obligatory, they use only a small amount of water that is insufficient for a single hand. So people wake up, they don't take their hand washing serious, and yet they wash their hands in their face. He says these people believe that they are purifying themselves by washing in this manner, but in fact, they are only adding to the impurity of their hands and face. For the sages have taught on numerous places in the Gemara, the water itself is very susceptible to defilement. So they're making this issue of they're bringing an additional sensitivity. Number one, you're removing spirits. This stuff's written. They're not making it up. They're not trying to sell this for commercial value. They're not trying to convince the world. This is what the tradition is, and this is what he's saying to other Jews. Right? He's not going down the street saying, "Hey, man, you got to believe this whole thing." No, this is it. So we believe that there is negative spirits connected to the hands when because the soul leaves the body, it comes back in, and it's an aspect of death. And so because of that, there's an aspect of defilement. And so he's saying when your hands are defiled, right? When your hands are defiled because of this experience, he's saying be careful with this water because the water you're pouring, water is very susceptible of defilement, right? She says, so therefore, when a person wakes up and washes, when a person washes in the morning, and also after sleeping in the daytime, one must pour 3 times on the right hand and to remove the impurity that's settled upon it during the sleeping. Then the 4th time to remove the defiled water. Okay, so like we talked about, he's taking it to the next level. He's saying, he said, you have the cup in one hand. I'm sure your husband has shown you. That you one hand boom, one hand boom, one hand boom, one hand boom, two, one hand boom, one hand boom, three, right? So he's saying now that you did that, you removed the defilement from your hands, but that water that is still on your hand has defilement. So you got to do an additional wash the fourth time to cleanse off all of that water. Now that the defilement is gone, that water that removes that last on that third one, he says it's still the water itself. There's an aspect of impurity there. So you got to do one fourth time to remove it completely, if that makes sense. Okay. Your husband could probably break it down too. He knows this. He says afterward. Okay. He says afterward, after one must pour three times on the left and to remove the evil spirits that rest upon the hand, and on the fourth time removing the remaining water. Finally, one must wash their face and rinse their mouth in whatever way they choose. So they're saying that, so it's important in the morning too to be able to this cleansing process after you cleanse your hands. After you cleanse your hands, you want to be able to take water. Now that your hands are purified, and you want to wash your face, and you also want to put some water in your mouth, and and spit it out. Maybe you know what I mean. This is the idea. And you just want to you just want to purify everything, and then you know that you woke up spiritually pure. Vehine riiti ame ha arsot shehim no tilin rach rachisa achata al yado. So it says, I have noticed, however, that many arrogant people will wash the first hand only once, and the men immediately wash the other while the defilement spirit is still on it. He says, okay, so they just understand. I have noticed that many arrogant people, many arrogant people wash the first hand only once, and then immediately wash the other only once. The defiled spirit is still upon them. So he says, like sometimes you see people, they'll take a cup and they'll fill it all the way up to the top, like the Netilat Yadayim cup, the cup we use to wash our hands. They'll fill it all the way top, and they'll do one power wash and then another power wash. And he says, no. He says it doesn't work that way. He says the defilement is still on their hands. And he says, and in this manner, they only increase the defilement of their hands. When they wash their hands, when they wash their face, defiling them as well. Finally, so then they said, like, and then that person takes that defilement on their hands, right? Because they didn't wash properly, and then now they rush their face. Now they got defilement on their face, right? Right, as well. And then finally they take some water and wipe their mouths, defiling their mouths too. By contact with their hands, then after they will add defilement to defilement. They recite the blessings over washing their hands, thereby reciting the blessing in vain itself. And he says, and for the rest of the day, they go out upon the rest of the day, they go out with the spirit of impurity still resting upon them, right? So he says, so therefore, anyone who should fear the heavens has a closed heart. I mean, close to his heart, he should conduct himself as the sages have ordained. Let them pick up a vessel in the right hand, and then wash their left, and then pass it to the left to their and pass it to their left hand, and then wash with their right. Then let him pour with his left hand upon his right hand three times, and he says, and then let him pour a fourth time to rinse off the defiled water from his hand. Next, he should pass the vessel into his right hand and pour it with his upon his and pour. He should pour it with his right hand upon his left hand four times, and then only after he's done this should he wash his face and mouth, and then let him conduct himself in this manner after sleeping in the daytime, as well as the spirits that purify settle upon him. Okay, I know it's hardcore stuff. But hey, this is where we're at. You know what I mean? And so, we got to go to the deep stuff because we're deep people, and we don't want to hear the lightweight stuff. Just a couple laws and wash your hands. Very nice. Nope. If we don't wash our hands correctly, we are taking the impurities of our nighttime and we're carrying it with us, and it does not feel good, right? And it affects us in ways that we're not aware of. It affects our mood, it affects our energy, it affects everything. And so when we are able to wake up in the morning and think about Hashem, to think about the creation of the universe, to think about the Mount Sinai and the giving of the Torah, and seeing ourselves standing there and thinking Hashem. And then when we get out of the bed, when we come to like a cognitive place of, okay, I'm alive, I'm already, I'm here, this whole thing, God loves me, I just go. Then I go and I remove the physical impurities, right? And then there I've made a connection between the mind and the hands, right? From the receiving to the manifestation, right? To the light to the vessel, right? And so that connection, we start with the mind, with Modi Ani, and then we manifest that connection fully with this, right? So, God willing, I don't know if you'll be with us tomorrow, but no, you're back Thursday, maybe Thursday, Friday. Okay, fine. We're rolling. But you're with the guy. So I mean, we'll be doing the learning and we'll keep going. But when we do come back to our class, we will go over the blessing for the bathroom. And so the blessing of the bathroom will complete this full purification process, because first we make the connections from the heavens and the earth, and then but in between the washing your hands, we go to the bathroom, right? So there's a specific blessing that we say for the bathroom, and we'll go on to that because it's a huge miracle that we're acknowledging, like when we do it. But anyways, we'll get there. But proud of you guys. We're gonna keep pushing. This is really big ideas, really big concepts, and just taking it in. It takes time. It's not the overnight thing. It's just getting used to the idea, a different way of thinking. But this sense of taking responsibility for each other is the most important thing, right? And having each other's back spiritually, and trust and all those things being at the forefront of that, as being that strength, and seeing the power of the woman being able to, she was just going to tell the angel of death, you have to leave my house, right? And having that power, and also, this idea of being aware that there's energies, there's energies, and we're sensitive people, and a lot of the moods and anxieties and different, things when we talk about our mental health, these are technologies for that. I'm waking up, processing my thoughts and my emotions and reflecting on this, feeling loved, feeling connected, by understanding there's a divine force that gave my soul life today. I already feel loved. That's very good for my mental health, right? And when I understand that there's influences and energies that come from my experience of being awake and sleeping, when I'm aware of that, then I'm able to remove that purification. And the fact that I perceive myself as being purified is extremely healthy for my mental health, right? And so we'll keep going through this whole process and see how this whole process is there for our mental health, but through the awareness of the Creator. Anyways, so Hag Sameach, continue to light, more miracles. Any thoughts, any reflections, anything?
Good.
You're good. Okay, so we'll continue on. We're back on at our normal time tomorrow, and it's a pleasure learning with you guys today. Baruch atah Adonai le'olam, amen v'amen. Hag Sameach.